understand that you have a major planning effort underway in the Library and Community Services Department. Can you tell us about that? What is that? Where's that heading?
Yes.
And kind of the scope of what we're doing here?
This is a huge project, and I think it's going to impact the city of Salinas for the next decade and probably beyond. We haven't done a lot of development in the way of parks and recreation facilities and libraries over the last couple decades, but probably. And so this is a great time for us to be able to kind of stop and assess what we do have, what the needs are, and where we need to be going in the future. So you know, what the official title for this is the Parks and Open Spaces, Recreation Facilities, and Library Facilities Master Plan.
Sounds pretty bureaucratic to me.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be.
Right.
And because what we really want this plan to be is not what we city staff want in the way of parks and recreation facilities and library facilities. We want this to be what the community wants. So this is really a multi-step process, and right now we have engaged a team of consultants to work with us on this because, as you said, this is a huge project. A lot of cities, for example, may just do a Parks and Open Space Master Plan, or a Recreation Facilities Master Plan, or a Library Facilities Master Plan. We decided to do it all at once, and I think it is important for us to do it all at once, because if we piecemeal it, you know, we'll be coming to the community and saying, we need this for parks, and then a couple of years later, oh, by the way, we need these resources for recreation facilities, and then another year later, oh, by the way, we need these resources for libraries. This is a way for us to be able to put all of those priorities together and figure out how to get as much as we possibly can, you know, spread out between those different facets of of community resources. So right now we're working with our consultants very much behind the scenes. They're gathering a lot of data. They have come and walked through our parks and our recreation facilities and our libraries. They've looked at all of our data, you know, people who visit, how many books checked out, program attendance, how many acres of parks we have, how many trees there are there, you know, how many slides, how many ball fields, all those types of things. So they're gathering all of that data. And so we're really ramping up now to be able to slide into that next phase, which is the community needs phase. And one of the things that we feel like it's most important to be able to get as much community input as possible is to involve the community in those community meetings, not just attending the community meetings, but actually leading, facilitating them. And so right now we're forming a steering committee of probably 40 to 50 people, because this is a large process. We need a lot of people involved. It will be, it definitely
to manage and
will be a little bit difficult to manage. But we know we have a lot of people in Salinas who want to get involved and who really want to be engaged and want to have a say in what we're doing. So there's 4 different parts to that steering committee. One will be focused on parks and open spaces. One subcommittee will be focused on recreation facilities, one on sports, and one on library facilities. So probably somewhere between 8 to 12 people on each of those subcommittees. And they'll be going through a training process on how to facilitate these community meetings, because, you know, it can be kind of intimidating to go out and, you know, try to facilitate a group of 100 people, 150 people, and to be able to get good usable information from them and kind of get everybody on the same page. So they'll be going through some facilitation training in February, and then almost immediately after that training, they will start launching those public meetings. So there'll be at least a couple meetings on each of those kind of focus areas, but then those facilitators will also try to go out and talk to PTA meetings, to Rotary groups, to Kiwanis groups, to neighborhood associations, to soccer parents. And so they'll be getting out there in the community and talking about the project and bringing that input back and feeding it into the process.
Right.
And then as time goes on, as we get through that community needs process and we start kind of translating that into, okay, these are the projects that we'll be looking at, they'll be giving the consultants and staff feedback on whether this is the best way to go, or maybe we should do this instead, or maybe we should tweak that. And so they'll be kind of our test ground along the way to really help make it the community's plan.
Let's revisit the scope a little bit. So I know we have 3 libraries, and it's either 48 or 50 parks.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many community
Yeah.
and recreation facilities we have. I've lost track of that,
Yeah.
but maybe you can
Well,
amplify on
it
that.
probably depends on what you call an actual community center. I mean, our major community centers are, of course, we've got our recreation center on Lincoln. We have the Breadbox Rec Center. We have the Hebron Family Center. We have Firehouse. We do have facilities at a couple other parks that kind of give us some program space, but I'm not sure I'd necessarily call them really recreation centers. But we do, you know, our consultants will really be assessing all of those facilities. And, you know, and they're also going to be looking at programming. So it's not just the facilities themselves, but the different types of programming that we offer out of all the facilities too.
Timelines. How long will this process of planning take, and when can the community see some results that will lead to some additional actions in terms of, you know, what might actually be constructed or improved or renovated or remodeled?
Well, as we've said before, it is a big project, and so it does have a pretty big timeline. We signed our contract with our consultants back towards the end of October. So we've been working away for the last several months here. We always expected that this would be about a 12 to 14 month timeline. So our goal is to be able to have a plan that the community supports and to be able to present that plan to City Council in December of 2017.
Right.
And, you know, I know it's one of those things that requires a lot of patience on the part of people, because we still have people who are saying, well, can we turn this tennis court into a soccer field instead? Or what about doing senior programming here? And I'm trying to say we need to be patient. We need to work through the master plan process. And instead of doing this in a piecemeal basis, we need to have that plan, and then we could move forward. I know it's hard for everybody to have that patience, because we want to see results right away, but that plan is going to be really important.
Now, what about your Library and Community Services Commission? Will they be directly involved in terms of the
Yes.
also getting feedback or making recommendations to the council?
Yes, they are involved in both the El Gavilan process and the master plan process pretty much every step of the way. Anytime we come to the end of one of these phases, our consultants are coming back to the Library and Community Services Commission and reporting on progress. In addition, most of our commissioners are going to be involved in one of the steering committees in one way or another, so they're going to have hands-on involvement as well.
What about other departments, Carrie Ann? Are other departments going to be involved in sort of providing some advice, opinions, preferences?
Absolutely. The master plan process, parks and recreation and libraries really isn't just the Library and Community Services Commission. Our Public Works Department is the one that's heavily involved in maintaining our parks and upgrading our parks and helping us build new facilities. So Public Works will have a heavy involvement. Community development does as well, because there are planners, and so this is really their expertise. So we're really relying on them in a very big way for advice and counsel along the way as we're moving through this planning process.
Do you see community safety in the police department also?
Absolutely,
maybe weighing
because
in?
especially in all of these areas, one of the things that the public has expressed so far is our parks and rec facilities and libraries need to be safe places. And so we need to work with our public safety partners to be able to make them the safe places that the community can use.
There are other public agencies, if you will, that have recreation facilities and community facilities. Will you be reaching out to them
Yes.
to participate in
Yes.
this process?
Well,
as
one of
well?
the things that we really is we're going to involve many of those people on our steering committees, but we also want to have several kind of focus groups and stakeholder discussions. And one of the topics of those focus groups is going to be on shared facilities and shared programming. I mean, we know that our schools have athletic fields and gymnasiums, and they may be heavily used with school activities, but there's a great need for recreation space and just community space too. So figuring out ways that we can all collaborate together and use that space is really a goal of this.
What about the neighborhood groups? There's some formal neighborhood groups and there's some informal. How will they be able to participate
Absolutely.
in the process?
And that's where we want our community facilitators to really be involved and go out there and speak to neighborhood groups. We also have involved many of those neighborhood leaders in those neighborhood groups on our steering committees too. So, we want to get out there as broadly. We'll be using social media. I know so many neighborhood groups in Salinas right now are on Nextdoor. And, so we'll be using Nextdoor to publicize a lot of what's going on with the master plan to get the word out.
Will be you using social media and other kinds of
Yes.
avenues for the
Yes.
communication? back and forth?
Absolutely, between Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Nextdoor. So we'll be using those heavily to get the word out.
Right. Now, tell us a little bit more about the experts you have helping you and
Well,
how they were selected.
Since this is a big project, there's probably not any one firm of consultants that could do this whole project. So we really do have a team. There is one lead team, Conservation Techniques, that is our lead team, but they have subcontracted with a parks and open space planning firm, with a library planning firm, with a recreation programming planning firm. So they have all of these different consultants working together, and they're coordinating the work. So we don't have to really take the time and effort to do that. Our lead agency is doing that. And we had a great process, I think, for kind of selecting that consultant team. We did do a public process where during a Library and Community Services Commission meeting, we opened that up to the public and invited the consultants that we were interviewing and let the public ask some questions of those consultants.
So once this roadmap is figured out, then what happens after the plan is finalized and is presented to the council? Where will it end up going?
That's where obviously there are going to have to be resources identified to be able to make that happen. And again, that's one of the pluses of working with our consultants, because they do have experience in kind of looking at how projects can be staged, how they can be funded, for example, and so how you can put that capital improvement plan together to be able to match what the resources available are. And that, that's another thing that's going to take patience, is because there may be, one project in that plan that a particular neighborhood is interested in. Everything can't happen at once.
Right.
So that plan is probably going to be it's going to relate to probably about the next 5 to 10 years. So there are going to be projects that are going to be done right away, and there are going to be projects that are maybe going to be done 10 years from now. And so we have to work through those.
But that may there might be some prioritization done by the
Absolutely.
community and
Absolutely.
interaction with the Library and Community Services Commission, and then finally with the council in terms of what might be the first
Yes.
phasing or the second phasing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that'll be one of the hardest things to decide is, what those priorities are, because we know we all live in our own little neighborhoods, and what's in front of us and those parks and rec facilities and libraries that are close to us are the most important ones.
Right.
And so being able to prioritize for the whole community, that's why it needs to involve the whole community.
What do you see as the sort of the director of all this? What do you see as immediate needs that need to be taken care of in that whole system of parks and community facilities and libraries?
I think we do have a huge need for programs for youth. And so we're doing great things in our recreation centers, at the Bread Box, at the Firehouse, at Hebron Family Center. We're doing great things under sometimes very, very difficult circumstances. And a lot of times those spaces really limit what we can do. So I do see a huge need for upgrading our recreation centers and making those spaces available for more types of programming. Right now, we're very much competing for space between sports and after-school activities and the arts and technology, and everybody has a need for space, so it's hard to fit it all in. On the other hand, kids need to be outdoors in safe places to be able to play soccer and baseball and tennis, those types of things too, and so we need to find a way to be able to expand some of those opportunities for kids too.
Right. So will this roadmap tell us if we need to add more facilities and more parks, or will it tell us
Yes.
to also consolidate some, or maybe shutter some and focus on more important facilities?
Those are always difficult decisions to make, to change what
Right.
you have already. I think that those are some of the hardest things to do. But I think that's where sometimes it can be better to have an outside expert come in and be able to look at things objectively and to be able to, suggest some of those difficult decisions to you.
Yeah. It will be difficult because we have different parts of our community that are identified as the south side of Salinas, the east side, the north side. So in terms of allocation of resources, it's always a difficult issue.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
who's on first, right? So that'll be a difficult determination, but one that the whole community needs to participate in.
And that community equity, we've focused a lot of, especially our recreation resources in certain areas over the past several years of great need. Because of that, we haven't necessarily served the entire community, especially with recreation services. And I think that's one of the good things that's going to come out of that, is some recommendations for how can we do things for the entire city and yet maintain some real targeted services to solve some great community needs.
Will there be an ability, maybe through the planning process, to engage and sort of entice other partners, maybe to fund some of the early projects that are identified?
Definitely. And we have some great funders in Salinas already that have really helped us through a lot of projects. So, and generally, those types of funders, foundations, corporations, they really like to see you have a plan. They don't like to see us jump into something without planning out what the impacts are going to be, what the costs are going to be, without looking at the entire city. So I think having this plan in hand is going to make the city of Salinas much more attractive to those types of funders to help us fund some of those projects.
So what's the key message that you want to let the community know about in terms of the plan and the planning process?
Mm-hmm.
What should they be aware of? What should they take advantage of?
I think this plan is only going to be as good as the number of people who participate in it. So I think more than any other type plan, because people interact so heavily with all three of these service areas, they need to, they're the community's parks, the community's recreation center, the community's libraries. And so they need to have a say in what services are offered and what the priorities are. So without this input, it's not going to be a good plan. With a great deal of really high quality, thoughtful input, this is going to be a great plan that's going to do wonderful things for the city.
Will it address some of those issues where we have some tension between neighborhood parks and what perhaps some sport activity needs to occur in certain areas? For example, soccer, and we don't have enough soccer fields. Baseball, we don't have enough baseball fields. Will it address some of that?
We're going to get, for example, on our sports steering committee, we want to make sure we get the baseball people and the soccer people and the tennis people and the volleyball people. We want everybody to participate, but that's also, I think, going to highlight some of those cases where, well, I think soccer is more important and I think baseball is more important. Really, they're all important, and hopefully this opens up some ways for people to collaborate and say, well, yeah, maybe we can give up some soccer space for baseball in this park if we can change this around over here. So it lets people maybe work out some of those solutions themselves without us inflicting solutions on that conflict.
And how will you coordinate, make sure there's sort of alignment, if you will, between the different planning efforts the city's undertaking, whether it's the LSL Vibrancy Plan, the general plan update, or any other plan that we're working on?
We have a tremendous amount of planning efforts going on right now, and so we are community development, public works, library and community services. We're all working together to try to put all of those planning processes together in one place where residents can see there's going to be this community meeting on this night that's going to be talking about parks, and then there's going to be this community meeting on this night and it's going to talk specifically about parks in the Alisal. And there's going to be this community meeting talking about Chinatown. And so for residents to be able to see all the different processes that are going on and how they can interact with those in one place without going to 5 different websites to try to figure out what on earth is going on, and especially without us, where we can combine meetings and do a meeting relating to the Alisal Vibrancy Study and to the Parks Master Plan at the same time. If we can get input from the community on the same night, if we can do one survey that asks multiple questions that touch on multiple planning processes, so people don't get tired of us asking them questions constantly.
Will it be a bilingual effort as well?
It absolutely will be, yes.
And we provide resources in that area to make sure that happens?
Yes, we will be doing, in some cases, translation at meetings. In some cases, we may be doing bilingual meetings. In some cases, we may be doing meetings all in Spanish. In some areas, all of our written materials will be bilingual. We do expect to be working very heavily with Spanish language media to be able to get the word out about the planning processes. So yeah, I think that's one of the most important things that we can do.
Wonderful. Anything else you want to add on the planning process?
That's a lot. I think that's great.
Thank you.